Hey there, YouTube. It's your favorite figure collecting robot, Wrestling Optimus. Wednesday night is here, which means it's time for AEW Dynamite on TNT. This is the go-home show for Saturday's All Out pay-per-view, so it should be exciting. But first, if you haven't done so already, check out my latest Dark reactions from the Garage Pool. If you're new here, make sure to help me grow by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. You can also talk to me over on Twitter, at PSUOptimus, or see all my best figure photography on Instagram at Wrestling Optimus. Now normally, for a review and some fantasy booking, we'd take it over to the action figures. But I don't have figures for anybody in the first few segments tonight, so let's just recap instead. Things kick off with a video package recapping everything Proud and Powerful have done to Best Friends. As they make their way to the ring, they're immediately jumped by Trent and Chucky T. The teams brawl around ringside before the match even starts, allowing it to basically devolve into a hardcore match. Chucky T screams, "I'm gonna kill him," while constructing a tower of chairs. Per usual, it backfires when Santana throws him off the stage into it instead. Meanwhile, Trent and Santana finally get back into the ring, and the ref calls for the bell to start the match. Chuck is still laid out in a pile of chairs, effectively making this a handicap match. Trent crawls over to the empty corner only to realize his situation. When Chuck does make the tag, he's still dazed, but manages to hit a tope con hilo onto Proud and Powerful. Trent reverses the street sweeper into a pile driver, but Ortiz gets his foot on the rope. Santana throws Chuck over the guardrail and grabs a baton from under the ring. He hits Trent in the back with it when the ref's not looking. Ortiz takes advantage, nailing the street sweeper this time for the 1-2-3. I guess they won't have to apologize to Sue after all. Darn. MJF is cutting a promo ahead of his match this Saturday when he's interrupted by Lee Johnson, who tells him Mark the lawyer, who has to fight Jon Moxley later tonight, has locked himself in a room. Mark is trying to find a loophole for page 17, but Wardlow kicks in the door and retrieves him. MJF understands that Mark is scared of Dictator John, but nothing is scarier than getting in the way of MJF's goals, so he can either get in the ring or get in a wood chipper! Next, we have a very interesting match concept. Each team is comprised of 2 tag teams, and the winners will face each other at All Out. SCU and Private Party are taking on the Young Bucks and my boys Jurassic Express. The only entrance we see is the Young Bucks, who come out super serious, foregoing their pre-match pose, although the Buck cannons still go off. All night the cameras have focused on a guy at ringside holding up a sign that says, "Hangman, drink my beer." When Matt Jackson rolls out of the ring, he's confronted by this guy who's drunk and screaming about Hangman. Matt tears up the sign and dumps his beer on this guy's head in frustration. Back in the ring, Isaiah Cassidy's high-pitched squeals whenever he takes a big bump always manages to make me giggle. Luchasaurus gets the hot tag. He attempts a double choke slam on Private Party, but they reverse it into a double dropkick. The dinosaur does an Undertaker-style sit-up, followed by a kip-up and a back handspring double clothesline. Then, he takes out SCU with a flip off the apron. If you haven't figured out why fans love him yet, this is why. After he slams Private Party in the middle of the ring, Nick Jackson and Jungle Boy head to the top turnbuckles for stereo frog splashes, while Matt Jackson and Luchasaurus do stereo standing moonsaults. This is fantastic. SCU make the save and help take back control of the match. We see lots of high spots from both teams before the Young Bucks tag themselves in, deliver the BTE trigger, and get the win. Looks like we'll be seeing them versus Jurassic Express this Saturday. Jake Hager is backstage. He finds Orange Cassidy and says that Jericho wants him at ringside for his match tonight, so it'd be smart of him to be there. They silently stare at each other before Hager storms out. Tully Blanchard is backstage with FTR. He told them they had to win that gauntlet match before they could do anything else, and they did. The next goal is beating the champs and capturing the titles at All Out. Cash says their legacy is dead if they walk out without those belts. Dax says winning means a 7-figure difference in their annual income. As for Adam Page, as much as they respect and like him, they like the honor of being champions just a little bit more. Tony Schiavone introduces Kenny Omega. Adam Page's presence is noticeably absent. Tony reminds Omega that Hangman cost the Young Bucks their shot at the tag titles and subsequently got thrown out of the Elite. Kenny says Page is his own man and will have to live with what he did. Yes, a lonely Hangman was fooled by those cockroaches FTR, but hey, these things happen. It doesn't change the fact that they're going to win on Saturday. Out come FTR with a cooler. They're impressed that two singles guys were able to become AEW Tag Team Champions. They've never had a problem with Kenny and Page. In fact, they're looking forward to an athletic contest at All Out. As a sign of good faith, they offer Kenny a chocolate milk. As a non-drinker, I loved this. Kenny isn't one to turn down a fine 2% chalk, but he is one to turn down spending more time with a couple of dickheads, which is strangely bleeped. So if their plan is a 2-on-1 attack, fine, but at least do him the kindness of not letting old man Tully get involved. Suddenly Adam Page walks out, whiskey in hand. FTR say they didn't get in Page's head, he's always been an insecure piece of shit, which is also bleeped. Omega manages to keep Hangman from flying off the handle, but when he demands that FTR give their belts back, they drop them on the ground instead. Hangman picks them up and goes to hand one to Omega, but he's now standing outside the ring, physically and emotionally distancing himself in shame from his fallen partner. I really thought the new Four Horsemen faction was going to include Hangman Page, but this segment certainly seems to put the kibosh on that theory. He looked genuinely upset coming out and betrayed when FTR mocked him. And much like their tag team wrestling style, FTR have now cut off the metaphorical ring and isolated their opponents from one another ahead of the match. This is impeccable storytelling you can't get anywhere else. It not only keeps the fans guessing, but glued to their TVs for weeks on end. Chris Jericho is being interviewed backstage in an amazing new jacket. He's excited for fans worldwide to experience the Mimosa Mayhem match on Saturday. Jericho claims he turned Orange Cassidy into a bona fide main event star here in AEW, but he's still not on the level of Chris Jericho. That's why he's going to win it all out and douse Cassidy with a little bit of the bubbly. As for tonight, Joey Janela is nothing more than a sacrifice. The Demo God is accompanied by Jake Hager to the ring and announced as weighing 335 pounds. It's so good to hear a crowd sing Judas again. Before things begin, Orange Cassidy comes out through the crowd and silently sits at ringside as requested. It's a quick match that ends when Jericho hits a codebreaker, then forces Janela to tap in the Lion Tamer. Afterwards, as a way of provoking Cassidy, Jericho exposes the turnbuckle and slams Joey Janela's head into it, drawing blood. Eventually, Orange has seen enough and storms to the ring. When Jake Hager gets involved, Joey Janela's tag team partner Sonny Kiss runs out to make the save. Orange Cassidy hits a DDT on Jericho and stands tall. As one last sign of defiance, he pulls out a bottle of Jericho's bubbly and dumps it out onto the ground while giving a thumbs down. Brilliant. We get a montage of the rivalry between Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara with a voiceover by the Spanish God. He accepts Matt's challenge for a broken rules match at All Out, but if Hardy loses, he'll have to leave AEW. No, Matt better not lose. He's one of the guys I actually have a figure for. Sammy comes to the ring with a bandage covering the gigantic wound he received last week. He holds up his usual #Sammy's signs during the picture-in-picture, but this time it's interspersed with shots of Matt Hardy staring down on him angrily from atop Daly's place. Finally, Sammy notices as Matt gives him a delete gesture. He holds up some signs of his own reading, "At All Out, you will be broken!" Team Taz comes to the ring. Taz says one of his guys is going to win the Casino Battle Royale at All Out. He calls out Darby Allin and Lance Archer. This brings out Jake Roberts. He calls Team Taz a bunch of losers. For some reason, this brings out Eddie Kingston and his indie buddies. In the 30 seconds he's given, he cuts a typically killer promo on Archer and Cage, before Tully Blanchard comes back out with his other client, Shawn Spears. They stand silently in the corner as the Gun Club runs out and Darby's music plays. Allin appears from out of nowhere and attacks Ricky Starks. The ring fills with wrestlers, including some of our favorites from Dark, like D3, Fabu Andre, John Cruz, and Serpentico. The Inner Circle joins the melee, but they're attacked by Best Friends. Everyone continues fighting through a commercial break until refs finally break it up. And yes, I only have one figure for all of these guys. We see a hype package for the match at All Out between Dark Order and the babyface collective of Dustin Rhodes, QT Marshall, Scorpio Sky, and Matt Cardona, during which Cardona admits he technically doesn't work for AEW, so he has nothing to lose. We get our first look at NWA Women's Champion Thunder Rosa in action ahead of her AEW Women's Championship match with Hikaru Shida at All Out. She's taking on the debuting Serena Deeb, who I'm not familiar with but commentary puts over strong. They have a quick, competitive match, half of which happens during a commercial. It ends predictably with a Thunder Driver and the victory for Thunder Rosa. Backstage, Jon Moxley congratulates MJF on getting his title shot, but says 2020 has been a bad enough year already. We don't need MJF's dumbass running around with the world title on top of everything else. It's trial by fire time, kill or be killed. Tony Schiavone is interviewing Big Swole about her match with Britt Baker on the buy-in. I see AEW is really working on that reputation by putting this women's match on the pre-show. Apparently it's going to be a tooth and nail match and take place at Britt's job, whatever that means. Rebel interrupts, pretending to deliver a pizza to Tony. It's dumb, but distracts Swole long enough for Baker to attack with a crutch. She rubs the pizza in Swole's face and applies the lockjaw submission. JR makes a comment that at least there's no pineapple on the pizza, and I completely agree. Team no pineapple! Side note before the main event. Mark the Lawyer is actually Mark Sterling, aka Smart Mark, of the Major Wrestling Figure podcast hosted by Matt Cardona and Brian Myers, the former Kurt Hawkins. This is the definitive wrestling figure podcast and YouTube channel, so first of all, go subscribe to all their stuff. Second, contrary to what Excalibur said, he's a legit wrestler and did not have only 7 days of training for this match. I'm just pointing that out because of the awesome action figure connection. That is all. Wardlow forces Mark out of the tunnel. He's dressed head to toe in a dorky red, white, and blue number with MJF in giant letters on the back. Moxley comes in his usual way and pauses to take in the sound of fans back in the stands. We're reminded that he just made number 1 on the PWI 500 as the best pro wrestler in the world. That's a legit big deal. Mark circles a bewildered Mox in his best shoot wrestling stance. John decides to give him one free shot to the chin, but stops in disgust when he sees Mark's poor technique. Moxley dodges the eventual punch attempt and slaps the Lawyer in the face so hard he temporarily goes deaf. On the outside, he throws Mark through a barricade and piles some chairs on top of him. He drags him back into the ring where, mercifully, Mox delivers a paradigm shift to put the Lawyer out of his misery. As John celebrates, Wardlow takes him out with a clothesline and beats him down. MJF slowly comes out to the stage, tosses his walker aside, rips off his neck brace, and joins in the beating. He puts on the Dynamite Diamond Ring and clocks the world champion in the head, busting him open. For some reason, MJF literally bites the wound and then chokes out Moxley. Now covered in Mox's blood, MJF screams into the camera and holds up the title belt. Now that's how you do a go-home show. Put this next to the recent go-home episodes of Raw and SmackDown for both SummerSlam and Payback, and they pale in comparison. Those shows didn't get me anywhere near as excited for their respective pay-per-views as this show did. They also didn't have anywhere near the build, and didn't put on that final hard sell. Seriously, this was a masterclass in how to utilize your free weekly television product to promote your paid event. Every single segment reminded you of the stakes in that particular feud. Not only did they have commercials for All Out in nearly every break, they also advertised the matches constantly on screen and on commentary. There was even a full rundown of the match card at one point. The entire show was used to drive home a clear message. There's a pay-per-view this weekend, and you absolutely do not want to miss it. This was the WWE's approach prior to the network devaluing pay-per-views in favor of subscription revenue and massive TV contracts. At the end of the day, I think that's what really separates these two companies. WWE is run like a cutthroat business, while AEW is run like a passion project by true fans. Similar to my recent criticisms of Raw and SmackDown, this wasn't the best Dynamite ever, although it was still better than 90% of WWE's product these days. However, It was one of the best go-home shows I've ever seen. For that reason alone, it deserves 5 stars. Ugh, I cannot wait for Saturday night. Okay, that'll do it for AEW Dynamite. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'll be back with an action figure review of SmackDown on Saturday and another one for All Out on Sunday, so stay tuned to the channel all weekend. As always, if you've managed to find me and enjoyed the video, make sure to do all the normal YouTube stuff. Smash that like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also follow me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus. But until next time, I've been Wrestling Optimus, and I'll catch you later.